Give me a little intro there, Gomer.
There's no turning back now.
Let's put on the show.
You're listening to the Station 71 podcast. My name is Mario, and this week I'm joined by my co-host,
Brian.
And we also have a very special guest, a friend of the podcast. Allie is on this week to talk to us about her recent Disney cruise. Recent-ish, I guess, is a better word.
Hello.
So, quick initial thoughts. Good cruise. Good cruise from the things you've told us, and I guess spoiler for later, other things, right?
Yes, it was a fantastic cruise, and I will say after I took notes because I went back, it was in September a few months ago now, and I was just saying to Jack, I was like, oh, looking through all these photos this morning, I just can't wait to book another one.
When's your next one? How soon?
We don't know yet because now we are planning other things, as you know, which we'll get into when we talk about the cruise.
It sounds like that may go hand in hand, maybe.
Potentially.
So let's dive into our news real quick. We'll get through those, and then we can let Allie talk about her trip. First thing I have on our news for this week is that Tron is going to be opening. I don't think we've actually talked about the opening time frame. Spring 2023, and we're starting to finally get some details on how this is going to work. It looks like it's going to open with a virtual queue and lightning lane options. If you were around for any previous virtual queues, this is going to work essentially the same. We're anticipating it being a 7 a.m. and 1 p.m. drop for the virtual queue, and that's kind of how all we've got right now. We do know that there is not going to be a standby line, and the lightning lane is expected to cost anywhere between $15 and $20. This is pretty much what I expected for it.
Yeah, I think this is going to have to be the norm for any e-ticket attraction going forward.
Yeah. I mean, definitely worked for Rise of the Resistance and all of the other semi-recent virtual queues that we've gotten. But I think it's interesting now that Lightning Lane is in the mix because I feel like this kind of has to have that.
Yeah. At the same, I mean, like, I definitely get it because anybody that really wants, like, the casual fan that happens to be going to Disney that day is probably not going to be able to, get on it anyways if they didn't have these two options.
Yeah.
If you're going to do standby,
Good luck.
can't even imagine. I feel like it would probably been even worse than Flight of Passage was at opening, so
yeah.
I see this moving forward, especially in Magic Kingdom. I mean, there's no way you can have a big e-ticket attraction like this and expect to do standby on opening day or, around opening day.
Well, and especially with how long this has taken, like, I feel like even the casual Disney fan knows that this is coming at this point.
Yes. I mean, really, I can't think of what's really the most recent, like, new e-ticket attraction that opened up at Magic Kingdom. Like, it's been a little bit.
That is a very good question. Like,
e-ticket, Seven Dwarfs, if you want.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Even this is bigger than that.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely been in development for what feels like longer than that. Next thing that we have on here is we finally have a closing date announced for Splash Mountain. This one also feels a little long overdue, but January 2023. It looks like the 22nd is going to be the final date that Splash Mountain will be operating. So,
did you see some of the blogs, how they reported it?
No, I did not. Was it not tasteful, I'm assuming?
I mean, they're just so clickbaity nowadays. I saw one that was like Splash Mountain closing forever. And like, that's clearly not the case. They just wanted people to click it and freak out. It was kind of annoying.
I feel like I don't know. I feel like it's been that way since they announced it. That like even for maintenance things, they're like, oh, Splash Mountain's closing forever, and it's like that's really not what this is about. But
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I don't know.
exactly.
I kind of can't wait for it to be over, just because I want to see what they're gonna do with Tiana's. I want to see what they're gonna do, like what pieces of Splash Mountain are going to still be around, but I also really just can't wait for the blocks to stop reporting.
Same.
Yes.
And then the last thing that I have on here, just quick news this week, is that we have some first looks at the Under the Sea room makeover coming to Caribbean Beach, and it's interesting. I feel like a lot of these new rooms that they keep coming out with, I like less and less. This one I'm very like on the fence about.
It's so funny because, you know, I don't know. I've seen the ones at Art of Animation and I thought, those are kind of a little bit much. And I click on this article and this first picture, I'm like, oh, that's pretty tasteful with just, you know, the kind of like aqua tones and the pastels and everything. It's like, oh, it's just kind of a design choice. And then I scroll down to the next one with like the pirate ship beds, and I'm like, oh goodness gracious.
I see. I like the subtle look of it. For you know, I like that as a room design. I like that there's the pictures of the fish in the background and everything, and then like if you kind of zoom in, it looks like maybe there's something on like the shower curtains, which that's cool. But I also kind of want a little more Disney.
Mm-hmm.
I think I've said before, my perfect room makeover is like the royal rooms at Port Orleans. So
Yes.
I'm probably the last person to comment on that.
Well, I mean, this is it. You don't get like any sort of in between. You get subtle or you get way in your face. There is no middle ground.
Yeah.
Yeah, when I saw it, I just thought, wow, this is an easy to clean room.
Yeah.
Like it's just very like boxy, and it just looks like they can clean it very well.
Yeah, boxy, hard surfaces everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
The one thing
Definitely efficient.
The one thing I feel like I've noticed with a lot of these is they all feel very sterile. Like
Yeah,
I don't know if it's just the white or like you saying easy to clean made me think of that, and I was like, oh yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
I
So
can't get
that's
over these pirate beds. Like honestly, them being ship shaped isn't the worst part. It's the sheets that look like a stack of treasure is just so over the top.
So for some reason, like just full transparency, that did not load for me the first time that we were talking about this. I had to close the page and reload it. And now that I'm realizing that there is a gallery of these.
It's so funny because like everything that you say about the Under the Sea themed rooms, like easy to clean, you know, just nice boxy square stuff. It's the exact opposite. The pirate one, the entertainment center is like an offset stack of boxes, and then there's a random barrel next to it which serves no functional purpose.
I think the fridge was inside the barrel.
That would make sense.
I stand corrected. That's awesome.
Yeah,
Okay,
I actually
want to
just
stay.
saw maybe like 6 months ago, a friend was here and she was actually staying in the pirate room. And I walked in and I was like, oh my God, I had no idea that this existed. I thought it was cool at the time. But like looking at it now, I'm like, a little cheesy.
A little bit.
And you could buy the pirate beds. They had them for sale at the cast store shortly after the renovations began. I want to say it was $100 for the whole frame.
How much?
Wow. Like $100. I thought people
$100?
Yeah, you didn't see the blogs covered it.
No, oh my goodness gracious. I missed an opportunity.
You did.
I mean, they might still be there.
I'll have to see. I still want a race car bed, so I can't have a race car bed and a pirate ship bed.
Go for it.
So that's the last news topic that we have. I guess let's turn it over to our guest to tell us all about your Disney cruise. I guess let's start off where you went. Like, route wise, and then also which ship you sailed on, because I feel like that's also kind of relatively important.
Yeah. So definitely stop me because like I said, I made notes so I didn't forget anything. But stop me if you have questions and let me know, anything that you might want me to elaborate on. So this was my second Disney cruise. I have only been on Disney cruises and I've only been on 2 of them. So I guess people have told me multiple times that I am ruined at this point and I can't go on any other cruise line because it just won't be the same.
You're ruined.
Yeah, that's what I've been told.
100% agree with that.
Yeah, so everyone has told us, even though we're like, oh, the other ones look cool, and I don't know. I trust Disney. I get motion sick, so I just had that, like, I knew if I got motion sick on my first one, they would take care of me and I'd figure it out. So the first one we went on was the Dream, but most recently we went on the Disney Wish, which in itself was just awesome. But the fun happened before we even went on the cruise. Should we talk about that first?
Whenever you're ready to give the big reveal.
This is your show.
Yeah, so the big news of the trip was that I got engaged right before we got on the boat.
I didn't realize it happened before you guys got on the boat.
It did. So the first cruise, I wanted to see the whole ship. And when you're at the port, it's really hard to see the entire ship from anywhere. But there's a parking deck at Port Canaveral. And if you go to the very top of it, you can actually get the entire ship and see pretty much the entire thing from end to end. So the first trip, we went up there and took photos and stuff because it was my first cruise and we thought that was really cool. So the second trip, and like a jerk too, while we were driving in the car, we were halfway to the port and I was like, so did you pack the ring? And I got the worst death stare I think I've ever gotten in my life.
I swear that girls have this like sixth sense to knowing when it's going to happen. I mean, I don't know if Brian can confirm that, but
Jordan swears that she was surprised. She might be lying, but I don't know.
I mean, I was surprised, but I was just kind of being a jerk about it. And this is our first trip since COVID, like, I had a feeling.
I kid you not, when I proposed, we were at Magic Kingdom the first night of our trip, and we were watching Happily Ever After, and Andy said to me, this would be a really good time to propose. And like, it was literally planned for the next day. So I swear there is some sixth sense there. So thank you for confirming that for me, Allie.
Your heart dropped out of your butt when she said that.
I swear I was like, oh no. How did you find out?
Yeah, so that's how I started our drive. And then we got there, we parked, we were on time. It really wasn't that crowded. Honestly, I was impressed with how well the taking of our luggage and boarding and all that stuff was going. So we went up to the top, and there was a few other couples up there, like older people. And I was going to ask them to take a photo for me, and they just kept like walking farther and farther away from us. And then finally I just gave up and I was like, well, let's just take a selfie. And then we started walking back towards the elevator, and that's when he was like, well, actually I did pack the ring. And he like said something sweet that I don't even remember. He doesn't even remember. It was like a giant rush. And he did get down on his knee and everything. And, I cried, he cried. Maybe he didn't cry, actually. I cried. In my head, he cried. And it was great. And then I just kept going, did my mom know? Did so-and-so know? And I turned around, too, thinking, like, maybe there was a couple up there that got a photo. But no, they all, like, abandoned ship when he got down on his knee and ran away. So no picture proof, but it happened. And then I called everyone. Like, for example, I called Cruisin, who is not on the call tonight. And Cruisin did not pick up my FaceTime, even though I said, hey, kind of important. She texted me, have to go to work in a meeting. And she's like, what's the matter? Just tell me. And I was like, well, I'm about to get on the ship now. Like, pick up. And then I ended up texting her just a photo of the ring. And she was like, yeah, all my coworkers are like, I should have picked up. I was like, I told you. But yeah, so that was really cool. And then we went and we checked in and went through like security and whatnot. And then we went to go, our boarding group was called, and we went to go get onto the cruise ship. And if you haven't been on one and you don't want to hear a little spoiler, close your ears for the next 30 seconds. But when you enter a Disney cruise, and I don't know if this is like this for all of them, but they announce your name and basically say, hey, Disney Wish, we'd like to welcome the so-and-so family. and then like all the cast members cheer for you as you walk in. And so it was
It's
really cool because they
100%
got
just a Disney thing.
is it a Disney thing?
Yes.
Yeah, so it was really cool. And the guy was like, what should I announce you as? And I was still, freaking out. And I was like, the future Davises. And he was like, oh, the future. And I was like, we just got engaged. And he like started freaking out. It was so cute. But yeah, so that was how we started our trip.
Nice.
And you asked
what
where
a high
we were
note.
going, right? It can only get better from there. We went on a 4-night, technically I think it's 5 days, but it's really 4 days because the last day you just get off the ship, to the Bahamas was our trip. And yeah, it was great because we got to shut off our phones after we told all the important people that we got engaged, and nobody bothered us with questions on where and when the wedding was for an entire week, and it was great.
That's one of the best things about cruises in general is that you really go on vacation and are cut off from the rest of the world mostly.
Yeah, it's fantastic. I will say, though, Disney has switched a little bit from first cruise to second cruise. Everything is done on the Disney Cruise Line app, which changes once you get on the ship. There is a lot more that's like blocked until you're on your cruise. So any events that you want to sign up for, any scheduling things, any shows you want to see, you have to use the app, and you connect to the Disney Wi-Fi on the cruise, which is free for the app. They charge different packages for any other kind of data. But for some reason, whatever free service they had me connected to, I kept getting notifications for everything, but I could not read anything for the entire week. So that was a little frustrating to have all those popping up all the time.
It feels like a weird choice to have everything tied to the app on a cruise.
Yeah, it was kind of weird, but it was efficient too because like you could favorite things. I just went to go take my phone and look at it, but I'm not on the ship now, so I can't. But you could favorite things. So like if you knew you wanted to meet, say, Captain Minnie at 4:00, at 3:45 it popped up and said, hey, reminder, Captain Minnie is going to be in the atrium at 4:00. So it did alert you to everything, and you can add like your shows, and your dining was on there. Told you where to go for your dining, where to go for, what's it called? Muster, I think it's called, where you do your safety stuff. Like all that information was done through the app, and it was truthfully really seamless. I was kind of impressed with how well it worked.
I remember being surprised by how well the app worked when we did our cruise a couple years ago because, the Disney apps are normally kind of hit or miss. And recently we went on a Royal cruise and they have kind of switched to the same thing, doing everything through the app. And it was a struggle at times. So I'll give Disney credit where it's due. Their cruise line app actually works very well.
Yeah, I was pleasantly surprised and impressed with it. So yeah, do we want to start with the day one itinerary then?
Absolutely. I'm curious to hear like your thoughts on the overall offerings and everything everything that they do, because I've never been on a Disney cruise before. So I'm sure Brian has some questions since he's our cruise vet here, but I'm just going to kind of soak it all in.
Yeah, I will say my second cruise was a lot more relaxed than my first cruise, especially because Jack has cruised now, I want to say 8 or 9 times, and this is only my second. So he's more of the seasoned cruiser, and I let him do all the planning, and he walks us around and figures out where everything is. But it's what you make of it. There is definitely things to fill your entire itinerary every single day with, or you can just relax. So it really, truly depends what you want to do. So day one on the Disney ships is usually a little crazy. I will recommend getting a boarding early in the day, just because then you have more time on the ship. So if you can, the earlier the better. And on day one, you can go anywhere in the ship, whether you have a reservation or not. And you can go into like the kid zones and places where adults are not usually allowed, just to see what everything is. So that was our first thing that I wanted to do, was go look at all the kid zones. And when I tell you the details on this ship were unbelievable compared to the Dream, and I loved the Dream. I had the best time on the Dream. And actually, if we back up to the main atrium that you walk into, when you walked into the Dream, you felt like you were in this giant, grand room. When you walked into the Wish, and this is a complaint that I've heard from multiple people, and it did take me a few days to get kind of used to, it felt a lot smaller. And it's not necessarily a bad thing, but I felt like the Dream had a lot more larger locations, and the Wish had a lot more smaller locations that were fantastically themed down to every single detail. So like the Dream might have had on deck 4 one bar, whereas the Wish had 2 smaller bars with different themes in each one, if that makes sense. So it definitely felt different walking into the ship. It felt a lot more enclosed, and it felt smaller, even though it is like a slightly larger ship. So as I was saying, the first thing we did was we went to the kids zone. And the one section had a Frozen section, a Tangled section, and a Beauty and the Beast section, all within like this giant square. And it was absolutely gorgeous. They had Beauty and the Beast library with the fireplace, and the fire was crackling. And it looked like Rapunzel's section had the paint everywhere. It looked like her room in the tower. And the Frozen section looked just like the meet and greet in Norway and Epcot. Absolutely gorgeous, beautiful. And we got there early enough that there was not a single child or person in it. So we got to just enjoy the section by ourselves for a little while. Then they had an Imagineer lab, which was very plain, except for they had a bunch of things on the walls. But to my understanding, that was kind of like an activity zone that they had for the kids during the week. So that was just kind of cool. There's blueprints and hard hats and cans of paint and things all on the walls. And then there was a whole Star Wars section, which not really my thing, but looked straight like it belonged in the Star Wars section of the parks. Like the theming down to every screw in the place just looked like it belonged. They had the cutest bathrooms that I've ever seen in my life. And I know that's a weird thing, but like the doors were just incredibly themed. Like each one had a different character on it. Let me see if I can send you guys photos, because that would make a lot more sense. And then maybe you would understand better. Brian, I think I have you on Facebook, right?
I do believe so.
There you are. But yeah, the bathrooms were just like super duper cute. So that was the kids section. And like I said, we walked around. I think our boarding was maybe the 3rd or 4th boarding group. We weren't the first. But it was just incredibly themed. And like the kids' bathrooms were like super tiny. There was a Small World nursery, which was super cute. I don't know, the theming, I love the little details on everything, and I just thought that it was fantastic.
I feel like that would be the first thing I would want to do too, is just run around and look at all the little details that I know are going to be impossible to catch later.
Yeah, and if I wasn't wearing a dress, that you also had the option, if you really wanted to slide down the slide that went from the deck that you enter on to the below deck to the kids zone. That's how the kids got there, with a nice little spiral slide.
Nice.
Yes, it was adorable. I sent you guys the photos. Hopefully,
wow, it's
Oh my
interesting. Like, so when we cruised, we did the Fantasy, which is the Dream sister ship, I guess.
Yeah.
And man, like one thing that I thought was like it had a lot of theming, but it wasn't necessarily Disney theming.
Mm-hmm.
But I thought the theming was really good. But seeing the pictures of this is just on a whole other level. This is
And I want to say that it's not just because it's brand new that everything was like shiny and new and pretty, but the thought that went into this, I am absolutely so excited for like the treasure and all the ships to come, because I feel like they're going to be designed on this level, but they're going to take all the complaints that came out of this new design and hopefully improve them even more for the next ones. Oh, I forgot to send you the Star Wars one, so I just sent that. So we did all the kid stuff first. And then we went to some of the other places that we knew we couldn't get into. So, for example, the Hyperspace Lounge, which is the one that has that ridiculously priced drink that Star Wars themes
I
are.
forgot about that for a second.
Yeah, you could not get a reservation for that unless you happen to be like at 3 a.m. on the app and somebody just by chance dropped their reservation. That was incredibly hard to get, so we didn't even try, to be honest. So we walked in there, again, super cute, super nicely themed, behind the bar, because there was no actual windows in there, but behind the bar they had one of the screen windows that made it look like you were out in space, and every now and then like it would rush by like you were going through hyperspace. It was cool. I'm not really a Star Wars person, as I think I've said on here before. So I appreciated it for what it was, but it wasn't like, something I had to do. Then we went, and Beth would have loved this. We went to the Bayou, which was a Princess and the Frog themed bar. It was absolutely gorgeous. They also had live music there throughout the trip. Here and there, they had like a guy with a guitar and stuff that would sit there. But it was just really gorgeous, and you can see like little details in the photo I sent. Like there was a statue, one on each side. One was Tiana and one was Naveen as frogs. Just perfectly themed. Like it was so cute. And the bartenders there were super nice. We sat there for a drink or two, and like the guy had an insane knowledge on rums and whiskeys and things, and like talked Jack through all the alcohol and different combinations of drinks and things. He was really cool.
This is gorgeous. And I will say, like, I've looked at the pictures that were posted, like the concept art and everything for this, because I remember we talked about it, but I feel like that doesn't do the pictures that you sent justice, because these in-person pictures look beautiful.
Yeah, and sometimes I worry that like the blogs and the promo things are going to be enhanced and nicer, but when I tell you, like, this ship was just so pretty. Everything we went to was just so pretty.
And this bar, it's one of those things that even if you're not a huge Disney fan or a Princess and the Frog fan, I mean, it's beautiful. Like even if you don't appreciate what the theming is, you have to appreciate just the aesthetics of it.
This is also like the kind of aesthetic that I was talking about with the rooms at Caribbean Beach. That like it's subtle, but it's not over the top and in your face Disney. Like this is what I want out of that kind of theming.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've been to New Orleans too, and it looked just like this one restaurant that we ate at, and it also looked like, I don't know if the Fantasy had it, and I'm blanking on the name now. Jack would be able to tell us. But on the Dream, there was a restaurant that was definitely like New Orleans kind of themed. And it kind of had this feeling too, like you were out in like a flower garden kind of thing. But yep. I'm hoping
it's
Disneyland.
The same one on each.
Is it? Okay. So you know what I'm talking about.
There was definitely like I don't remember the name of it either, but it was definitely like
Enchanted an outdoor garden, maybe? Am I making that up?
Yep, that's it. You're right.
Yep. Yeah, so it gave me kind of the feelings of that. And I'm kind of hoping that the restaurant, because they're making a restaurant in Disneyland with the reimagining of Splash Mountain to Princess and the Frog. So I'm kind of hoping it has the same vibes. So then we did a little bit more walk around. They always have a movie theater on the ships, which I think sometimes they show premieres of movies. This one they didn't. But they had two movie theaters on the ship we went on. One was Peter Pan and the other one was Wonderland. And they had these like amazing wood carvings all over, which was really cool. And then like in the Peter Pan one, the lights were Tinkerbell. The sky, cool. Yeah, like just little details like that. They had the north, south, east, west on the stage, marked, kind of like the Neverland map, the Lost Boys and everything. The clouds on the ground, like everything was super cute. We didn't watch any movies, but I just wanted to see the spaces. The elevator I've actually seen TikToks on this, that the elevator on the Disney Wish is one of the most photographed things because it says Disney Wish on the mirror, and people really like that. So I've seen a few TikToks recently of people being like, what was our favorite thing on the Disney Wish? The elevator. The elevator was actually kind of weird, to be honest. They were They were smaller. They weren't in the center of the ship like some of the other ones had. So you kind of had to go forward or back to get to an elevator. And the buttons were super, super sensitive. So multiple times we got on with, other guests and somebody would lean on them and all of them would get pushed just by like being an inch away from them.
Oh no.
Yeah.
So you got to
It's
take
a
the
known
scenic
issue,
route.
apparently. Yeah, it's a common complaint, and apparently they're working on it. Is weird. And then we went up on the deck, which was really cool because it was empty, and we saw the pool. And the one thing that was different from the other ships is the Dream had like one giant pool. I'm assuming like the Fantasy did too.
Mm-hmm.
The Wish had probably 5 or 6 separate little pools, which was interesting. And then the splash zone was Toy Story, which was most of it was really cute. Some of them were a little freaky looking. The kids really liked it. And then they had like Partysaurus Rex and stuff like that on the side, which I know I have a picture with later. But that was really cute. Eventually, halfway through your day, you get to go check in and all your luggage is there. Our room was Cinderella themed, and I found out after we booked it that there was actually, depending where your room was and the type of room, they weren't all Cinderella themed, but some were Frozen, some were Princess and the Frog. I think there was a Tangled one. So that was cool that the rooms had different themings.
Yeah.
And then we did the welcome party with all the characters, and it was absolutely adorable. Even after working with the characters in the parks for 10 years, I think that the cruise characters are 1,000 times better. They are so good at what they do. Their animation is fantastic. They're so kind. They spend time with you. So I love characters on the ships.
So which ones did they have?
I did notice, and I don't know if this is because of COVID things, there was a lot less face characters on this ship than other ones. But they had pretty much all of the Fab Five. Tiana and Naveen were there on and off. Moana. I did see Belle at one point. I know in the main atrium there was like a balcony that you couldn't physically access, but you could see Cinderella and Prince Charming were up there a few times. There was a lot of characters. You just had to kind of follow and see who was there and when.
Okay.
And I have noted on here too which characters I did see, so I can, when I go through my days, I'll let you know.
Gotcha. Not skipping ahead.
Yeah. So then that's all the photos I have for the first day. But then we did the welcome party, like I said. That night, our show was called Seize the Adventure. I could have watched that show every single night of the cruise and been happy. It was the cutest thing. Minnie is basically captain of the ship in her pants, which is fantastic. And she ends up giving over, not to give spoilers, but she gives over the reins to Goofy to take the wheel for a little while. And you can imagine what ensues, kind of like a PhilharMagic vibe. And it just went through like all the different characters. There was Frozen, Moana was in it, Peter Pan was in it, Cinderella. Like it was a really, really fantastic show with original music, and then also mashed up with the characters' story music, and it was fantastic.
I think that was the biggest takeaway that I had from my cruise was, even as somebody that's not really big into like musicals and stage shows, just the level of enjoyment that I had seeing those and just how top notch they all were. It's hard to describe. Like,
Yeah.
I thought Disney did an absolute great job, and I'm sure they've stepped it up even more for this boat.
Yeah, and I'm always amazed too. Like I said, I do get seasick and I do get motion sickness. So the first night, I'm always like, especially sitting down, once you finally sit that first night for the show, I always can feel every single little bit of wave. And I'm always amazed that they dance and they jump and they flip and they do everything without like any movement issues at all. It's unreal. So we did Disney Sees the Adventure, and then we went to Marvel dining that night. And just in the same way that I'm not a Star Wars girl, I'm also not really a Marvel person. But I did watch the movie that it's based off, Ant-Man and the Wasp. Is that it?
I think so. I will be
You'll have
honest.
to
I haven't
ask
looked too
Mario.
much into the stuff on the ships, but
Okay.
I believe it is.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. If those names sound correct, then that's what it is. So I watched that a few days before the trip, only because I didn't want to be totally clueless in the dining experience. The dining experience was cool. It was different in the fact that it was very spread out as opposed to a lot of the other dining, you're in one giant room. And this one, since it is more of an immersive experience with like the screens and things, it was kind of separated, which was neat. And then they Ant-Man and the Wasp, they come on the screens and they talk to you. And then of course there is some kind of, conflict that you have to resolve and you have to help them solve it. And not to give too many spoiler alerts, but the room, lights up and does things and interacts with. And it's pretty cool. But I literally didn't take a single photo in there at all that night. And that is all I know of it. I have like no other memories other than that. If you are a Marvel person, I'm sure it would have been a lot cooler. Like the kids in the room were so hyped over it. They thought it was great. And then after dinner, which I forgot to mention, we went on a Halloween cruise. So after dinner that night, they actually had, or it might have been in between dinner, they had a ceremony to light the pumpkin tree that was on the ship in the main atrium.
Oh, nice.
That's cool.
Yeah. So that was cool. It was kind of freaky. It has a face on the tree, as all the Halloween ones do. And I've never been on the other one that we went on wasn't Halloween. So there was a storyline and it is related to the other trees in some way. But I don't remember the story. But it was
Cool.
pretty. It was fall. It was different. It wasn't very Disney looking. Do you guys know FAO Shorts?
Yes.
It reminded me of that talking face from FAO Shorts in the old stores many, many years ago. But it was cool. It was pretty at night.
That tree, I mean, I didn't realize it had a face, one, until you said it had a face because
Yes.
my picture hadn't blown up. But when I blew up the picture, that was the first thing I noticed. But from far away, that tree looks really cool.
Yeah, the face threw me for sure. But it was pretty. It was nice, and then like just the decorations and things were really nice. And that was day 1 for us. So day 2, the next morning, we woke up and we were in the Bahamas. We were at the Nassau port, which is what we went to prior. If you have never been, Disney does, for safety, give you warnings to make sure that you are aware of your surroundings at the Nassau port. I will say we did it once. That was enough for me, and I will likely not get off at Nassau on another trip again.
Yep.
Yeah. And I've been to Atlantis in the Bahamas. It was fantastic. I love it. Castaway, which was day 3, I could live on Castaway and be happy, and I don't even like going to the beach. But yeah, there's just people that yell at you if you don't want to buy their drugs, and it's just, if you have the option, stay on the ship and enjoy a somewhat emptier ship.
That is very jarring from a Disney cruise perspective.
Anybody that's been to Nassau knows you get off at the port, you go to the first 3 streets where all the shops are, and if you go one street too far, you will immediately know that you've gone too far and you turn back around.
Exactly. Yeah, you don't really stray. So we chose, since we've been there, done that, to stay on the new ship and to just do the ship. So the first thing we did when we got up, they had breakfast every morning. You can eat your breakfast in the actual sit-down dining, or you can go to, there's 2 different options for quick serve. So we just did that every morning. And then we walked the entire ship outside on the deck, which was really cool. And if you haven't been on a Disney cruise before, you need to join the Facebook group beforehand. I don't know if you did this, Brian, but people do gifts and different giveaways and things. So there's door decor where you decorate your doors with magnets and things every time. We just did something super simple that I made, and then somebody actually surprised us with a door decor. But while we were out looking at the ship, we found a hidden rubber duck that somebody just put on the ship. And it just said, like, congrats, you found our rubber duck. We're in stateroom, blah, blah, blah. either keep it or pass it on and hide it somewhere else. So we ended up
that's
hiding it
cool.
somewhere else. But yeah, like the guests are really cool on the ship and they do fun things like that. So we did that, and then we laid poolside at the Chip and Dale pool for a while. It did start to rain later in the day, which is fine. And then we got ready for Halloween night, where I was super excited to meet Minnie Clarabelle, who we've had some controversy on Discord, and Daisy as the Sanderson sisters. And they were really cool. It was very neat to see them like that. And then we also did we waited for Donald, who was dressed like a superhero, and he was super, super cute.
I love those costumes. Like that was a very good choice.
It is. And I think the controversy in the Discord was who else would replace Clarabelle, and I cannot think of a character that would go with Minnie and Daisy that would be fitting.
Literally anybody, anyone else.
Yeah, it just fit. And then that night was the Halloween party. We did get rained out. Was it that one? Or it was Pirate Night we got rained out for outside. But Halloween night, they did a Halloween party outside. There was dancing. Everybody was there. Chip, Dale, Mickey, Minnie, Daisy, Donald, Goofy, Pluto. And they were all in Halloween costumes, which was super cute. The show for that night was The Little Mermaid. It was a very different take on Little Mermaid, and it was what I'm hoping is going to be more closely related to what the new movie is going to be. They did have a black Ariel. She was absolutely fantastic with the voice of an angel. And they modernized a little bit and they switched the story just a little bit. So that was really cool because it wasn't just, your average, everyday Little Mermaid show. And then we did my favorite thing other than getting engaged of the entire trip. And we went to Arendelle for dinner for Frozen dining.
Nice.
It was amazing. If you guys didn't know already, I am a giant Frozen fan. I wasn't after the first movie, and then I was after the second movie. And then working with them, they were my favorite to work with. And it was so good. And Oaken was there, and he was hysterical. He was like the comic relief of the entire night. And like he came out with like the yoo-hoo, and he was just absolutely the funniest thing. I'll send you guys a video too because he was just so funny. But they had a violinist and I think it was a guitarist was the other guy, and then just a vocalist. There was those three. And then Kristoff was there, Anna, Elsa, and Olaf. And they were there with the storyline that they were celebrating Anna and Kristoff's engagement, and this was a big engagement party.
How timely.
Right. It was so fitting. And they performed. The three performers were, I could have sat there the entire vacation and just listened to them for a week. The girl's voice was absolutely stunning. Like I got chills when she sang some of the songs. There was even one point where our server was like, "You're going to want to record this." And the violinist played the Panic at the Disco version of Into the Unknown. It was phenomenal. We also somehow got super lucky and were at a table that was right next to the stage in the center of the room. I don't even know if I ate dinner that night, to be completely honest, because I don't remember putting any food in my mouth. I was just watching the show the entire time.
I mean, that's how you know it's a good show.
Yeah. They were just so good. And they were singing like my favorite songs. And I did take pictures of like the food all night. And the only food that I have pictures of is the dessert, which was after the performance was done, which was really cool. I tried sending you guys a video, but it said the clip is too long. So
was it the violin guy?
Yeah, some singing.
I got I think that's the Oaken one. Yeah.
Yeah.
We got the Oaken video.
So yeah, so that was cool. And the characters. What was that?
I said there's another one that's sent.
Yeah, it like wouldn't let me cancel, so I don't know if it's going through or not. You might get it. We'll find out. You can watch later. But Yeah, so that was cool. And the characters walked around. They didn't stop for pictures afterwards, but they walked around and talked to you. And we had gotten celebrating buttons that said like just engaged that we happened to wear that night. And Anna noticed it first, and she stood there and had like a 5-minute conversation, her and Kristoff, with me about getting engaged and how exciting it is and their wedding planning. And she was going to lend me Oaken with his wedding services and stuff. They were fantastic. And then like the rest of the night, every time like they walked by us, she would wave to me and be like, "Congratulations." They were adorable. Super, super cute. And I think it was funny because like working with the characters for so long, I know how to talk to the characters without like being awkward, I guess. And the two other girls that were at our table, because we did sit with strangers, which we can talk about, they told us in the beginning, they were like, we get so awkward with characters. And then like Anna walks up and like they didn't know that I had worked with characters, and I just have like this full blown 5-minute conversation about being engaged, which was really funny. So yeah, that was the best part of my entire trip. I loved frozen dining, and we will talk about more of the details of that later. But Jack went to the bathroom after frozen dining, and is it a coincidence or did Disney plan it? We don't know, but he told me that the urinal cakes were shaped like snowflakes.
Wow.
So, did they just happen to be white and have a pattern like a snowflake on it? I don't know, but I like to think that that was something that Disney planned.
Nice.
I would like to think that too.
Right?
I'm kind of disturbed as to what the other option would be for it to have ended up that way.
Yeah, and I can't say because it's not like I see very many urinal cakes, but your guess is as good as mine.
I don't see many themed urinal cakes, I can tell you that much. So
Yeah, I don't think I do either.
Yeah, so we may never know if it was intentional or not. So then this was our long night. After dinner, we went to one of my opinion funniest things on the ship, which is called Match Your Mate. And this is one of those things that you just kind of have to check on the navigator to see when it's going to happen. And Match Your Mate, we specifically sat on the second floor for this where they couldn't pick on us because they select 3 different couples. One couple who has been together the longest. So we had the cutest couple. It was also Halloween night, mind you. So he was dressed up like Mr. Fredrickson, complete with the tennis balls on his little cane. And his wife, they've been together, I want to say it was like 60 plus years or more. They were so cute. They had a couple who had literally just been married like a few days before getting on the ship, and then a couple who's been together like a middle amount of time. And then they separate you from your partner, and they go ahead and ask you very embarrassing questions. To see if your mate is going to come back and give the same answer. So, for example, like they asked them, what was your first date? Who paid and how much did it cost? And the ladies, I believe, went first. And the older couple, she said, like, we went to this diner, he paid, and I think it cost $10. Like, they both got dinner. He came back, he remembered which diner they went to, how much they paid. Like, he's like, but I don't know if I ate breakfast this morning, but like, he remembered their first date.
Oh,
Yeah. And then you get like the middle couple or like the new couple who's like, oh, we swiped on Tinder and I think maybe we went on a date or maybe we just hung out in our room. Like it's highly inappropriate at times, but super funny. And this is also one of the things that kids are not allowed at. So yeah, that was a really, really fun thing. And they add up the points and everything at the end, and there's a prize for the winning couple. I think they get to go to like the spa or something like that. Which is really cool.
That seems like something I would love to watch, but not actually participate in.
Definitely.
We sat on the second floor because when we also took off our just engaged buttons because we did not want.
There you go.
Yes, fun to watch. I wouldn't want to participate in it personally. And then another spoiler alert, if you don't want to know, at midnight on the Wish, since it is Cinderella themed, it does come over the speakers in the main atrium, and there are light effects that happen with the chandelier. And the bell rings 12 times, and you hear Cinderella go, "Oh no, I'm late, I have to leave," and whatnot, and the whole audio ensues. So we had already been up late. We were like, we're probably not going to make it till midnight another night. And so we went out there and everybody just kind of lays on the floor of the atrium and waits till it happens, which is an odd thing to see, but still really cool.
That is really cool.
Yeah. Like I said, the little details like that is what really, really makes it. So that was day 2. I promise the other days aren't as detailed. Day 3, we went to Castaway. It was absolutely fantastic. I love Castaway. We started off on the family beach, and then halfway through the day, when it started to get more crowded, we went over to the adult-only beach. Both were absolutely lovely. It was kind of an overcast day, so it was warm enough to be out there in the water and everything, but nice enough to not be like dying of heat stroke. And that was lovely. They do a barbecue on the island, which is always good. I've never heard of anybody complain about the barbecue there.
Yeah, that might have
Right?
been my favorite meal that we had on the entire trip when we went.
Yeah, it's delicious. And that was all we did. We relaxed that day. That was our day of relaxation. Previously, like, there's bikes you can rent, you can go snorkeling, you can go scuba diving, I believe. The bikes you can take out on this like super far trail, and there's a giant like lookout tower you can climb up. We did all that on the first time. So this time we just relaxed, which was nice. And then we also saw the newly blogged infamous Bob Chapek and Bob Iger and Josh D'Amaro signs on Castaway.
Nice.
Yes. And I have that picture forever now. And then we came back and we got ready because it was pirate night, which is always a super fun night. So for pirate night, we got dressed up and we saw Pirate Mickey and we saw Hook and Smee, which were super cute. And they had the other characters too. I think Minnie was there, Daisy, Donald, all dressed up in pirate outfits. Super, super cute. And then they have a pirate party, which is usually done outside. Like I said, it got rained out. So they moved it inside. And this is where the tiny atrium didn't really work, because they did it inside and the entire cruise ship trying to fit in the tiny atrium, even with the different levels, we couldn't see anything. So we ended up just going to dinner early that night. Because there is pirate night, there's no show that night. So we went back to Arendelle for dinner, but instead of seeing a show for the Arendelle dinner, it was pirate themed. So it's the pirate menu, I think, is the same on every single ship. Jack is obsessed with the rum cakes. Like, if this guy knew he was going to, have a last meal, I can guarantee he would eat the rum cakes. He gets so excited for the rum cakes and would have been devastated if they had changed the rum cakes. And they're delicious too. He actually has shared a bite with me. So those are good. The only thing I will say that I was disappointed with about Pirate Night is usually all of your servers and hosts are dressed like pirates. And I don't know if it's because we were in Arendelle and they were just super themed with Arendelle, but they were all in their Arendelle outfits and not pirates, which I thought was kind of lame.
That is strange.
Yeah, and like I said, I don't know if it would have been one of those things like you don't want to see a Pirates of the Caribbean worker in Fantasyland kind of thing, but I still wanted them to be in pirate outfits. And then after dinner, it did clear up. The captains of the ship are magicians. I don't know how they did it, and they even announced it before the show started that somehow they found a clearing in all of the storms that were happening in the rain, and they found a spot that had no rain so they could set off the fireworks for us that night.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and we noticed it on one of the navigators that it showed us going back towards the Bahamas after we had already left the Bahamas, and that was because they were trying to find a spot for the fireworks. So props to the captain in September that was driving that ship, because that was worth it. So yeah, and then we did the fireworks, and then they had like a little dance party after. I think we hung out for maybe 5-10 minutes, and then we went to bed. And that was the end of day 3.
Nice.
Yeah. And then day 4 was a day at sea, which is usually super, super relaxing. What did we do on day 4? So one of those other things that we mentioned to you is, or that I mentioned they have on the Navigator, is trivia. There's constantly Disney trivia or different kinds of trivia going on. So we did do trivia in the one pub, and that was super, super cute. The theming, again, was fantastic. I just sent you guys one of the videos, or no, a picture of one of the portholes in the pub, and it's literally an octopus holding a Mickey pretzel in his hand. But they had like other things like that hidden too. So just super cute. So we did Disney trivia, and then we went to Jack Jack Diaper Dash. Brian, did you watch this on your
Oh
ship?
my gosh, absolutely.
Incredible.
Like going into it, like I'm not so sure about this, and then when it started, I'm like, I'm so glad we did not skip this.
Yep, that's how I was the first time. Jack was like, we have to go watch it. And I'm like, we have to go watch Baby's Race? What? And he was like, no, we have to watch it. And it was worth the entire thing. It was so cute. So Mario, they basically put down a mat on the ground that has like lanes on it. And then if you have a baby that does not walk, because if your baby walks, they get disqualified. If you have a crawling age baby, you can enter them into this contest, and they put them at the end, and you're allowed one person on the finish line side, and there's no rules as to what you bribe them with. You can have snacks on that side. You can have like people were shaking their keys. People had an iPad trying to like lure their babies over there, and they literally you yell. I think the wording is "race that baby." And they let go of the babies, and the babies all scoot and go everywhere, and they're so confused because people are screaming and cheering. It's so great. It's so, so great. So we did that. I don't even remember which baby won, but it was worth it. I think there was like 3 or 4 heats of babies, and then they had the final. And then we went and got snacks. So they had the inside out snack area, which had gelato and macaroons and cake domes and a bunch of other things. We had on the Disney Dream, that is where I introduced Jack to macaroons. He had never had a macaroon before. And so we were like, oh, we got to get macaroons, like a tradition. They were kind of nasty on the Wish, not going to lie.
Oh, no.
It was pretty upsetting. They just tasted, the flavor wasn't bad, but they tasted like they made them in Florida before we left port. They were a few days old.
That's unfortunate.
It really is. But we did also opt for a lemon mango popsicle, which was like a cake pop made in heaven. It was absolutely delicious. And if you go on the Wish and don't get this, you are missing out. Because I would eat that every single day if they had that here in the parks. And then I signed up for, almost there. I feel like I've been talking for hours. Then we went, and the very first day when we got to our room, we kind of like took a break and relaxed, and we kind of had like a crash from the hype of getting engaged and, talking to people and all that. So I was just on the Navigator for a while, like favoriting things and seeing what was on there. And they had something on there called Walking the Wish Ship Tour. And I was like, Jack, have you ever done a ship tour? And he's like, no, I don't remember ever seeing that before. So I signed us up for it. And it was just what it sounds like. It wasn't backstage or anything, but there was a cast member that literally just walked us around the ship, and gave us a tour and told us like little details of things and thoughts that the Imagineers had putting things together. And it was really cool. And part of it was returning to my favorite thing, Arendelle. And they pointed out like details that I did not notice while we were just in there, doing our dining thing. So I'm going to send you guys some photos. And if you've been to Epcot, this will make a little more sense as I'm talking through things. So the first thing that I thought was really funny, when you first walked in, there was an Anna and Elsa bust of their heads sitting there in the entrance of the dining. And when I tell you, it looked like literally the characters came to life with how they put them into 3D. They were absolutely stunning. And There's also, for those of you who don't know, on every ship there is a main character in the atrium, and the Wish is Cinderella. And Cinderella, if you look up her photo in the Wish, she looks how do I say it? She looks a little funky. She does not look very good. And he even joked and said that the person who constructed and was contracted to do Cinderella was not the person who did Anna and Elsa. And he made some joke about letting it go and all that, but Anna and Elsa were absolutely fantastically done. They were very, very good. So then we walk in.
Man. I
What?
just looked up the
Cindy?
picture of the of
Yeah.
Cinderella. Yeah, ooh.
Yeah, Cindy be looking rough. She
Ouch.
lost that glass slipper and had a rough night. The only thing about the Cinderella one that I did like was Lucifer and Jack and Gus are behind her, and they're super cute, but yeah, Cindy looks rough. So then going into things that are on the walls in Arendelle, the first wall on the right, and they had this in one of the movies, is the little puffin that Elsa owned. I don't know if you guys can see her. And then there is the horse bust that are like the bookends there, similar and kind of showing the horse that Elsa gets in movie 2. If you haven't seen Frozen 2 by now, sorry for all the spoilers, but you should have seen it. And then in the box underneath the puffin, there is a pair of blue gloves that Elsa used to conceal and not feel. So just like the fact that they thought, hey, let's put gloves there because Elsa had them in the first movie. Ugh, the details, so good. You also have from the back of Arendelle, they told us the closest picture you can ever get of Rapunzel hanging off the back of the ship. So I got a nice picture of her foot there. And then on one of the other walls is the scepter, and I don't know what you call that other thing that she held when she got coronated. Then there is the dolls on one of the shelves that you can also see inside the meet and greet in Epcot that were on and Elsa's dolls as kids. There was beautiful art all over the entire thing as well. But I don't know if you guys have a clear enough vision of the photo I sent you. There is that one picture of Anna and Elsa with their parents sitting having a picnic out on like a grassy field.
Mm-hmm.
And if you zoom in behind them in the back there, does that building look familiar?
Let me see.
It's hard to tell. I should have got a closer picture.
Is it the church building from Epcot? Like that's in the pavilion?
You're very close. It is
I cannot tell.
It's actually down to the detail the summer house that you go into when you go to meet Anna and Elsa in their meet and greet.
Oh, I see the grass on the roof. That's a nice little touch.
Yeah, but like even like the detail to like the hand painted things that they have in Epcot on the walls was on that building in the photo. And the fact that somebody thought, I'm going to make a picture and include the building that already exists in Epcot and tie our whole storyline together. Amazing. Unbelievable. I love it. That is right there why I love Disney.
Yes.
Ugh, so good. And then we saw, I think I sent this photo to you guys in the Discord as well. We saw this one piece of artwork that I just thought was really cool. It was probably my favorite piece of art throughout the ship, and I forget the number, but there is a ridiculous amount of art on the ship. But this one I believe was called the Cinderellas, and it is just a bunch of women of different shapes, sizes, races, colors, everything, helping each other out of like a giant ditch. And it is just like, it just was really like a picture that spoke to me, I would say.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, really cool. And it was made specifically for the Wish. So then what else did we do? Again, we were a day at sea, so we couldn't get off the ship. We met Moana. We met Captain Minnie in her pants, which I was so thrilled for. I do have a photo with Janky Cinderella. And then we went and we saw a production of Aladdin for the entertainment that night. It was probably my least favorite show out of the entire time, and they did have technical difficulties, which I've never experienced for a Disney show on a ship, to the point where like halfway through the first scene, they actually stopped the show. And it was like seamless too. Like I don't even know how the performers knew something was happening, but literally like mid sentence, mid act, they like all paused and literally left the set. And then like it went black on the set and they were like, "Hey, we're having technical difficulties." So that was strange. And I have seen Aladdin on Broadway, so maybe that was why I didn't think it was that fantastic, but definitely my least favorite. And then we went to 1923. No, was it 1923? Yes. 1923 for dining. There was two different sides of this restaurant. One was the Walt side and one was the Roy side. I had one of the best steaks I've ever had in my life. And I am the kind of person, don't send me hate, but I like a well done steak. I do not like blood. I do not like, yes, I know. I'm also, Jack is totally aware that the Ottman Steakhouse, there is a man there that makes a well done steak so good that I told Jack if he ever passes away or leaves me, I will be marrying that man because the steak is so good. But that was a really good, like fancy upscale dining. No characters in this one, but everything was just really good. Jack got, I think he had lamb. The desserts were good. Everything was really good. And then they had memorabilia from just a ton of the different movies. They had sketches, they had mock art for like character design. They had different swatches for like costumes and things for character design. And afterwards, since we were the last seating for dining, we did go into the other side. I believe we sat in Roy and then we walked over to the Walt side and just like looked around at the end of the night. But it was just a really cool atmosphere in there. And we
I
really did
love
enjoy
that.
it.
That's such cool decor.
Yeah, it was very classy, but also, you know, like included the characters and animation and everything, which was really neat. And then I will say I was very skeptical and nervous, especially this being our first trip after COVID. And on our first trip, Jack actually requested our server, shout out to Abadi on the Dream, but I think he's on a different ship now. But he was fantastic, and we don't know if it's because we requested him or not. He was what you would think of when you think of like good Disney service. He was just that on the last ship. So I was nervous. We sat by ourselves in the Dream, and on the other ship, I know it's typical that they sit you with strangers. So I was not super thrilled about having to sit with strangers. But when I tell you like Disney paired us up well, they paired us up so well that like I still talk to some of the people that we sat with.
That's awesome. You know, and when we went, we talked about that we thought that really, I don't know how, if they just
Mm-hmm.
get lucky, but it was like we got along so well with the like two other couples that they sat us with when we did
Mm-hmm.
ours, that I was like, there's some way. I don't know if they're like stealing our identification, looking through
Right?
our like our social media and stuff to find common interests, but it was really almost spooky how well they did it.
That's
Agreed.
like one
And
of the things about cruising that gives me a lot of anxiety.
same.
So it's good to hear that that's like not an issue.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. When I sat down the first night to dinner, I had a slight attitude because I was just I didn't want to sit with other people. I liked having like me and Jack time and not having the phones and like just doing our own thing. So I was very nervous about that. But I'm guessing, I don't know, Brian, were you sitting with like a younger crowd too? Because I think they go by age partially.
They had to have, because when we went, I mean, this was a couple of years, so it was like me and Jordan were on our mid 20s, and it's like
Mm-hmm.
how there weren't that many other like mid 20-year-old couples on
Yep.
this boat, and I was like, they did this, they certainly did this. But yeah, both of the other couples were like within 2 or 3 years of us.
Same. We were all in our 30s. The couple in the photo I sent you that are closest to the camera, they had just gotten married. This was part of their honeymoon trip from California. And then the two girls that sat across from us were actually from the UK and were like avid cruisers. They constantly are on cruises or going to Disneyland Paris and things out there. So that was really cool to get to talk to them. But also, like, all of us were around the same age. We all had that, like, I don't know. I always say that there's two different types of Disney adults. There is like the really cool type of Disney adult, and then there's like that type of Disney adult. You know what I mean? And we were all the really cool type, but like appreciated Disney for what it was, and like everybody was just awesome. So we got very, very lucky, and I'm glad I got over my attitude and actually like started conversation and talked to them because it was absolutely worth it.
Yeah, we ended up like hanging out and doing some of the activities and like karaoke and stuff with some of the other couples
Hmm.
that we met. So it's definitely like I would not have done karaoke if it wasn't for them. So
Yep.
definitely, even if you are kind of more introverted, I think it's a really good way to like meet some people on the ship and like kind of break out of your shell a little bit.
Yeah, especially the second day, because the first day you don't know who you're going to be sitting with at night. So the
Hmm.
second day, every activity we started going to, or like character meet and greet, or just wherever we were on the ship, we kept running into those two couples as well, and like we were like, oh, we're all doing the same thing. Like we actually have the same interests, and then like it gave us something to talk about later in the day, which was really nice. I will say the only disappointment is probably the server that we had, and I don't want to knock him. I don't want to like, I don't like talking bad about cast members. Um, but you could just tell, and it wasn't just him, every server on the trip was tired. You could tell that they were exhausted. Um, and the girls had told us they did a lot of the cruises in the UK when they were doing those staycation cruises, where they were literally just leaving during COVID, leaving the port in the UK and then going right back to the port in the UK. Like they weren't traveling anywhere. Um, but I've heard from several people that, they would start off with one server and then that server would disappear. And they wouldn't see them again the rest of the trip. And you can be assumed that they had COVID or got sick. And then another server would have to do double duty and take over their station. And you could just tell that the servers were tired. Previous trips that I had been on, and maybe it was just because my server was super great the first time. So, Brian, correct me if I'm wrong. But like if I went to order something, especially like on the third night or fourth night when they knew kind of what I liked, what I didn't like, if I went to order something that wasn't great, a body would straight up be like, let's try something else, or I'll bring you that, but pick one other one and I'll bring you that one too.
Yep.
Or if you ordered, like two desserts, he would always bring us a third. Or like they made the joke the first night on the ship, like I spilled my water on my first cruise. So he gave me a sippy cup the rest of the trip. Like there was just like little things like that like they never, if they noticed you weren't eating something, they would just automatically bring you something else, like assuming you didn't like it. And this guy, like the first night at Marvel, this is actually one thing I remember about Marvel. I tried for the appetizer, I think it was a pork belly bao bun. And the same way that I like my my steak well done, I do not like fat or anything like that on any of my meats. This pork belly was literally just straight fat. So I pulled the entire thing out and literally just ate the bao bun that night. And he made the comment, oh, yeah, that one's really not that good. Well, sir, why didn't you tell me that? Like, I would have taken your advice. Why didn't you ask me if I wanted something else or just bring me something else? Like,
Yeah.
just little things like that I thought were interesting. And you could just tell they were tired. And it wasn't just him. Like I said, like you could tell that all the servers were a little bit overworked at this point.
No, I think that really might be something just like across the industry.
Yeah.
The Royal cruise that we went on earlier this year, I would Royal generally I've been on geez, probably 4 or 5 Royal Caribbean cruises now. And I would say that they, as far as service goes, that they generally give like the Disney cruises a pretty good run for their money as far as like,
Hmm.
how well service is done. But this last one we went on, it was pretty, it was not how I remember it being. So maybe that's just across the board with post COVID and not post COVID. I know it's still going on, but
Right.
just how things have changed, and I'm sure almost everyone on any of those ships is getting severely overworked right now.
Yeah, and like it is in their contract. I think they do work a crazy amount of days in a row, and have limited time off until they get like a week or so off here and there. I know the cruise worker life is a whole nother podcast worthy of stuff that I'm not too familiar with. Um, but yeah, you could just tell like it was not normal. It was not normal at all. And don't get me wrong, like there were cast members that I came home and being a cast member myself, I went and could not give them online fanatic cards quick enough. For example, we wanted to check Jack. We had done previously on the first ship a mixology class, and Jack was interested in the rum tasting that they had. But again, unless you got extremely lucky on the app, you were not getting a rum tasting. So we waited in the guest relations line at one point just to ask if perchance, somebody maybe dropped it and we could pick it back up. And this guy, Adrian, he was fantastic. If you go to guest relations on the Disney Wish and you see Adrian, tell him we said hey, because he was awesome. He had asked us, like just while he's pulling up things on the computer, how was your trip? And I was like, oh, great, we got engaged. And he was like, you don't have buttons? And we were like, no. He went in the back, got us the buttons. Later that night when we went to the room, not only did he send us a bottle of champagne that was in the room, but there was a piece of paper that like a plaque, not a plaque, like an award of some sort that like said congratulations, and then it had all the different cast members from different locations in their native language wrote congratulations on the paper.
Aw, that's
um
awesome.
yeah, it was really cool because we had like Chinese. I know somebody wrote it in Philippine, whatever their language is, but they wrote that they were from the Philippines. There was Spanish on there was French on there, which is also something really cool that the cast members are from everywhere on the ship. And then we went to thank him the following day and also check on the cruise, the rum tasting, just to make sure, like, hey, any openings the next day. So we went to thank him and we saw him again. He like gave us hugs. You didn't have to thank me. And then it was really
Aw.
cool because the very last cast member we saw before we disembarked was him, and he like ran up to us and gave us hugs and said congratulations and stuff. Like, so there were A+ cast members like Adrian, but yeah, you could just tell some of them were a little bit tired. I have two other things actually for people who haven't cruised before. If you like coffee, and I sent you guys a picture, I got Mickey on the top of one of my lattes with the fancy coffee art.
Okay, now I don't drink coffee,
Yeah,
but
you drink beer.
ha- I do.
They can also do it on top of a beer on the foam.
How? How do they do this?
So I know the coffee one. I'm sure the beer one's probably different. I would think, anyways. We asked because we made friends with the bartender at the one bar. He told us that it is actually coffee grounds that they put on the top there somehow.
Really?
That's what he told us. I don't know if that's true.
Huh.
And like that's why I'm saying I don't know, because what would they use for the beer one? Would they put coffee on top of the beer? I don't know.
I don't know, but I mean, I've seen people do the latte art and stuff, but this has
Mhm.
this is on a different
Yeah,
level. This is like
it's
there's
it's not
shading and stuff in here.
it's not hand done, if that's what you're asking.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's
Yeah.
I've seen things where like they take the paper and have like a print
Yeah.
on it and they use that to like transfer it over. That's what that kind of looks like, not to
Yeah.
burst the little bubble, but
It's more of like a laser technology is what I would say. Because
Okay.
they had like it was a machine that you put it under and it had a touch screen on it, and you could select from like there was like thousands of different options on there. And I made sure because I had seen there was very few spoilers that I looked up for TikToks and things like that before the trip. Otherwise, if I saw the Disney Wish, I kept swiping, so I didn't have any spoilers before we went. Um, but I did see some people got like really weird ones. Where like there was even a girl next to us at the bar the one day who was like, "What is this?" And she showed it to me, and it looked like some weird like baby holding a balloon. I don't know. It was real weird, but it was really cool. And like I said, I would ask specifically for Mickey, or I think Jack got Minnie at one point, or the couple next to us got something. But I have seen weird things, and I think at Disney Springs, if I'm not mistaken, you can actually somehow give them a photo of your own, and they'll put it on there, because I'm 99% sure I saw somebody at Springs the other day post a photo with Bob Iger on his coffee.
What a
So,
thing to put on your coffee.
I mean, people are going to celebrate the way they celebrate. Yeah, and if you like coffee and you're going to get lattes and things, there's actually a coffee card that they have there. And I want to say, I couldn't find mine before. I want to say it's buy four, get the fifth free. And that's a lot of coffee to drink in one trip, especially if you are the only coffee drinker in your group. So I know, like, our bartender at one point, like, gave me an extra stamp, and it just got to the point where the last day I didn't want to have a coffee before we got off, because then I would have to carry all my luggage with a coffee and do a balancing act. So I saved my card. I don't think they change it, even though it says it's only good for the one trip. But just a fun fact, if you're going to drink the coffee, you might as well get the stamp, so that way you can potentially get a free one. I found the Bob Iger on coffee photo too, so I sent it to you guys.
Dang.
Yeah.
Uncanny.
Right. And then the other things that they offer that we didn't partake in, there was an incredibly themed salon called the Untangled Salon. Get it? It was so cute, but you can get like an extremely expensive manicure there. You can actually get your hair cut or done. And then they had on the other side of the ship, same floor, Hook's Barbery. And they actually had a bartender in Hook's Barbery as well, with a bunch of, like, from my understanding, high shelf liquors in there. I'm not a drinker, so I don't really know exactly what was in there, but they had like a whole section where they can, if the guy was in there at the time, he would, bartend for you. And that's also where they had like the mixology class and things in Hook's Barbery. So you can take some shots and get a haircut at the same time. But yeah, so that is everything that I had written down, except for leaving. The last morning we woke up, we chose not to go and get food. You can go back and get food and see your server one last time if you want to, or, just say goodbye to people. We were kind of tired from the whole trip. We were back on land. We turned our phones on, and we had not announced on social media that we got engaged, but we still had a ton of messages from people who we had told. And we just kind of wanted to get off the ship at that point. I want to say it was like 15, 20 minutes after they like announced that we could start leaving. And we went out to the main atrium, and you hear Cinderella getting woken up by the birds, like she does in the middle or the beginning of the movie. And in the middle of the atrium where the chandelier was, that starts lighting up and the lights start going and stuff. And then she says this, like, I don't even remember what it was. I should have looked it up. But she says her line about not wanting to wake up from a dream because it was so good. And it's like the end of your ship, like your trip, and you're getting off the ship. And it was just like, wow, like that was such a cool way to tie it all up. And then A Dream Is a Wish Your Heart Makes plays in the atrium. And that's when
That's cute.
And that's when we got off and ended the best week ever.
So I was going to ask you what your second favorite thing from it was, but I feel like you answered that already with your frozen dining.
Yeah.
I guess, what was your third favorite thing?
I would say probably that first night show, the Disney Sees the Adventure. I just thought it was so unique, and I'm a sucker for entertainment, especially when it's something that you can't experience anywhere else. So I thought that was really good. Or Castaway, but Castaway is just like any trip. I don't like the beach. I'm not a fan of sand, but like if you put me somewhere without sand with the sound of the beach, I could stay there forever. And just the private island and the seclusion of it, and there's so much of it that's just not touched and natural, and it's so relaxing. So Castaway too. Did you go to Castaway, Brian, when you went?
Absolutely.
Oh yeah, you mentioned the barbecue.
Yes, and Castaway is definitely more laid back and relaxed than, say, like Coco Cay, which is Royal's private island. I think that kind of just goes with the atmosphere of the boat you're going on too. But yeah, we like Castaway Key a lot better.
Yeah, and I know a lot of times people are hesitant to go on Disney cruises because they're like, oh, the kids. Like, okay, yeah, people have kids, but um, like we specifically picked the second dining because most people with kids will do the first dining because their kids are cranky and hungry and then have bedtimes. So there tends to be less children in the second dining, and there is adults only sections, whether it be like the bar or the pub during certain hours. There is a adult only pool. I will say signage on the Wish didn't really specify like this is the adult only one, so if you didn't know it, I I would assume that some kids at some time, walked through there. Um, but it really wasn't overly kids unless you're going like to the Toy Story splash zone. You're not going to be overwhelmed with kids.
Yeah, that's one thing that we really noticed too, and it was kind of surprising. Is it sounds bad, but like if you are going or if you're trying to get away from the kids, it's actually a
Mhm.
lot easier on a Disney boat than the other. Just because like you're saying, Disney has so many specified like areas and activities and events and stuff that are only for adults, whereas a lot of it just kind of gets blended all together on some of the other ships. So
Yeah, and if you have kids and want to get away from them on the ship that you bring them on, they also have sections where you can drop them off. And at first, like me as a child, I don't think that I would have enjoyed that. Like I was not the person who on the playground wanted a random kid to ask me to play. So I don't think I would have enjoyed it as a kid. But if you have a somewhat social child, I've heard that the kids like beg, like, "Oh, do I really have to eat dinner with you? Like I just want to go back and play with my friends." So, and I know like the characters show up there and they do story times with them and activities with them. Um, and then there's just so much for the kids to do. Like they were doing scavenger hunts throughout the ship and stuff. So there is options to get rid of your kids for a little while on the ship too, if that's something you want. But yeah, hopefully I convinced some people to go on the Disney cruises.
not that I needed much convincing, but you're definitely making me want to plan another trip now.
When do you want to go? Because I've been already asking people, like, hey, let's do a friend trip with a bunch of people.
Oh, I'm down anytime.
I might have been looking up cruises and dates earlier today after writing down my notes.
It's been on my list of things that I kind of want to do, but I feel like that's pushed a little bit further.
Yeah. Yeah, so when you asked when do I want to go on another trip, currently planning a wedding, so probably gonna be a little while unless I get a last minute deal of some sort.
Hey, I mean, there's always the honeymoon.
There is, which we've already discussed possibly doing. And I discovered there's cruises that don't leave from just Florida. I knew they left from like, there is one that leaves from New York. So, Mario, that's close to you. Um, there's
It's not
another
bad.
one that leaves from New Orleans in Louisiana. But I also found out, fun fact, there is like a 14-day one that you can go from Hawaii to Australia. And there's also a Hawaii to Canada one, which I was like, that could be cool. So our honeymoon might have to be a month long, but we'll
Seems
see.
interesting.
Right? Yeah, there's a ton. And then there's ones over, I believe there's a port in Spain. The UK I think still has one that, goes back and forth, and I'm sure that's only going to expand as we get more ships.
Nice. So, I mean, that answered my other question of would you do it again, but I feel like that was an obvious.
Yes, and I know if like we did not book, but I know there are deals like Jack's mom usually does it. If you are on the ship on your cruise and you book your next cruise while on the current one, I want to say you save like 10% or something like that. Like there are incentives to do that. And I think there's a little flexibility too. So like say you plan it for a year later and then you want to change it to 13 months instead of like 12. I think you can change them, but they find ways to keep you coming back.
I mean, that makes sense. They do that at the parks too. I've noticed that,
Yeah.
like, if you book when you're trying to check out, they have that.
Makes sense.
Got to keep you there.
Yep. Yeah.
Cool. Well, thank you for giving us your summary of your trip and giving us the full rundown. It's something I know I'm not super familiar with, so that's always exciting to hear about.
Yeah, if you have questions that come up, feel free to ask. I clearly like talking about it. I did not plan on talking this long today.
Please stand clear of the doors. Por favor, manténganse alejado de las puertas.